Hey everyone, how's it going? It's 2026, so let's commemorate the new year by talking about a comic that dives into one of the possible futures of the DC Universe, with Batman Beyond, but also covers some of my favorite story concepts, the evil mirror universe, as we encounter the Justice Lords Beyond in Batman Beyond 2.0. Published in 2015, but first released on the DC app in 2014, Batman Beyond 2.0 was the third and possibly final installment of the Batman Beyond comic series, taking place on Earth 12, aka the DC animated universe. And yes, I'm aware that there has been debate on whether Earth 12 is the DC AU, or just heavily inspired given some of the additions to the canon, like the first story introducing Hush, or continuity errors like how Dick Grayson ended up losing his eye and later retiring. Personally, I believe that it is canon, especially since some of those errors were somewhat acknowledged in the 2.0 series. As for what Batman Beyond is, well, by this point everyone should know of the third installment of the DCAU Batman series, but if you are new to all of this, I'll give you an abridged version. Taking place years after the events of Batman the New Adventures, or really most of DCAU, we are introduced to show original Terry McGinnis, a high school student who most saw as a street thug in the making. But that all changed after both being chased by the Jokers, a street gang inspired by the Clown Prince of Crime, ending with him meeting and being saved by an older Bruce Wayne who retired after years of trauma on both his body and mind, along with just dealing with aging, him discovering the Batcave. And right after that, learning that his father, an employee at Wayne's company that was forced to go through a merger with the Powers Company, whose owner, Derek Powers, was discovered to be creating a bioweapon, but before Terry's father could go to the cops, now run by Commissioner Barbara Gordon, he was killed, which would inspire Terry to seek justice and avenge his father with Bruce's help and become that generation's Batman. Don't forget the DNA reveal in Yes, Terry is also later revealed to be related to Bruce thanks to gene splicing led by Amanda Waller, but that's another story. Point is, the show was a hit and would last for 3 seasons and a movie, along with making several comebacks in later DCAU shows, and of course, had several comic tie-ins and spin-offs. And during season 3, we would actually get our first look at the Justice League, or at least what it would become after Unlimited, a few years before the series in the 2-parter, The Call. This league, that of course would be known as Justice League Beyond, would be comprised of an older Superman, whose costume I don't care for, I'll get into that later when we talk about art, the new god, Big Barda, Aquagirl, the daughter of Aquaman, Warhawk, the son of John Stewart, Green Lantern, and Hawkgirl, Micron, a size-changing metahuman who took inspiration from the DC hero The Atom, and Kai-Ro, a young monk who became a Green Lantern, and later we learned in the comics is the brother of Batman Beyond villain Curare. This team would be so big that they would get a spin-off comic which would add more heroes like Mr. Miracle, Barda's husband, and fellow new god, Billy Batson, Captain Marvel,
Captain Marvel, baby! Haha! Yes!
Yeah. And Danica Williams, this timeline's Flash, who, thanks to a special link to the Speed Force, was trained by past incarnations of the Flash, who by this point became one with it, including, of course, this universe's Wally West. This team before this story were in a rocky spot. Things were getting really complicated for them, since Superman's powers were going crazy for a bit, leading them to go to the Phantom Zone in hopes of fixing it, and encountering both Brainiac and Jack Zur, picking up this universe's version of Zod, who here is the DCAU's take on Superboy, and finally the return of the DCAU Wonder Woman, who has been living on Earth 50, aka the Justice Lords universe. As for who those guys are, we're gonna have to look at the Justice League animated series and talk about the season 2 two-parter, A Better World. They're a universe, at first, not unlike the Leagues, as they start out as pretty much the same as well-respected and beloved heroes. However, what set them apart was first of all their Superman, who, though started out as someone wanting to help others, quickly grew a massive ego to the point he valued more being loved and worshipped than actually doing good. Think Homelander, but not stupid. This revelation would be revealed when the second big difference happened. Lex Luthor became president. Now, we never learned exactly what Lex was trying to do, but the ending result was the death of that universe's Flash and the world on the brink of World War III. When the Lords came to stop Luthor, the bald sociopathic billionaire with an ego the size of Jupiter decided to try to burn the country eventually to the ground, then face justice. And man, I wish we were still in a time where something like that was only existing in fiction. Anyway, Lex mocks Superman, saying that the reason he let Lex live for so long was just so he had a villain to fight, leading to Superman to finally let go and kill Lex. There's actually been debate among fans on whether Lex wanted this to happen, since given how he reacted right before Superman came in, it seemed that he knew that he wouldn't be able to walk away with a slap on the wrist. I kind of think that was the case, as besides the reason I just said, it is also on brand with Lex wanting to have the last laugh by goading Superman to finally snap. This would lead to the Justice Lords to take control of the world. Not outright, they kept the world leaders in charge, but they were clearly just figureheads, as we see them enforcing all forms of law to an insane degree, to the point where even littering was a prison sentence. This would eventually lead to protests and the Lords becoming melancholy of their early years, where people loved them. Eventually they would learn the League's universe and try to replace them, but with the help of that universe's Batman, who, though at first was all for the Lords, realized he's gone too far and takes the League home, where with the assist of their Lex Luthor would use a device to remove their powers and send them back to their universe. So what happened to the Lords after their defeat by the League? Well, let's dive into Batman Beyond 2.0, Justice Lords Beyond, and see. Warning. Spoilers. The story begins with a familiar sight in Gotham. A group of Jokers causing mayhem and mugging people on a train. As they escape with creds, we quickly learn that the leader of this group is Terry, though for some reason sporting blonde hair. This is a nice juxtaposition to how we first met Terry in the series, who fought a Joker doing the exact same crime. Plus, it's also a nice touch making Terry's mask resemble the Joker Scab from that episode. Unfortunately, those ill-gotten gains won't cut it, as it turns out that Terry owes money to a Joker faction's leader, Z, and in desperation, Terry tries to rob his own mother, but she stops him, ending with a heartbreaking fight and his mother crying and Terry running out. Yeah, if it hasn't been obvious enough, this is not Earth 12, but Earth 50, as our Terry encounters Earth 50 Terry, tired and beaten up, pleading for help. As for how and why this is happening, we go back some time before, where we see Diana reuniting with Bruce Wayne. Which, yeah, congrats to Batman and Wonder Woman shippers. You kind of win this one, as she's now living with Bruce after this. Hell, they won and then some, as, along with Terry, we learn from Superman that after Lex's return from his disappearance in the end of Justice League Unlimited, was arrested again, and revealed that the ray they used to depower the Lords was only temporary, and that they would regain their strength. Knowing what kind of threat Lord Batman was facing, came to their world to help, and though they were able to keep them back, they were forced to return as their world was under attack, but Diana chose to stay and eventually fell in love with that Batman. And though they did try to return, they quickly learned that that wasn't going to happen, as it seemed the Lords were able to cut their worlds off, giving them no means to return, at least until now with Diana back. But why is she back? Well, she's being very coy, which leads to both Terry and Superman theorizing that she might just be Lady Wonder Woman, but while Clark is investigating, he wants Terry to head to the Lord's universe and find Lord Batman to hopefully get some answers. It's actually pretty clever, given that Lord Batman lived a totally different life, and as we saw, Earth 50's Terry has definitely never met Bruce, meaning the Lords wouldn't know him, making it easy for him to sneak around. At least it was supposed to, but the instant he comes to Earth 50, he deals with the military police headed by this universe's Dick Grayson, who chases him around Gotham until he finds this Earth's Terry. To avoid confusion, I'm just gonna call League Terry Batman. Batman wakes up at Terry's place and tells him what exactly is going on. That he's him from another universe, though for some reason he says timeline despite this isn't time travel, and needs to find Lord Batman. And he finds him, or at least his memorial. Yeah, it turns out after the League left, Lord Batman and Diana continued their war, but despite Lord Batman at least getting Green Lantern, John, and Hawkgirl of their world to leave peacefully, Lady Wonder Woman, however, stayed and took a page from Injustice Wonder Woman and married Lord Superman, even got part of the world to side with them. The war just kept getting worse, but ended in a ceasefire as new threats put the world at risk, like malevolent Aquaman, Brainiac, and Darkseid. And though it looked like they could have had peace, the two lords would raise hell, ending with Lady Wonder Woman killing Lord Batman and Diana to kill her counterpart. What happened after that? What is Lord Superman's plan? Can they trust Diana? And what will Batman find in the Lord's universe? Well, besides a cool new bat suit. Well, you're gonna have to read to find out. This book is a lot. As you can see, it's not exactly new reader friendly. I know what you're thinking. Biz, you living nightmare in a creepy skin suit? Of course it's not reader friendly. It's volume 2 of a series. And yes, that is true. In most cases, the second volume is not the best place to start, but Here's the thing, most comic series usually try to make each arc, or at least the start of the arc, easy enough to follow, so even if you're starting with the second volume, you usually are able to get up to speed pretty quickly to not totally be confused. Case in point, the Black Sad series, the Spider, we'll talk about that character later, even the Long Halloween series. Hell, the other Batman Beyond 2.0 volumes in this series didn't have that problem. Volume 3, Mark of the Phantasm, is actually pretty easy to follow, and that's even continuing storylines that started here. Hell, besides the fact that it does expect you to have watched Batman Beyond and Justice League the animated series, the other reason the story feels like a lot is because this arc didn't start in Batman Beyond 2.0. If the opening wasn't a dead giveaway, the stuff with Zod, Diana, and the Lords didn't happen in the pages of the Batman Beyond books. The first volume was dealing with the return of Arkham Asylum and Terry and Bruce having a mysterious falling out, not addressed here by the way. The writer of the Batman side of things, Kyle Higgins, was essentially playing catch up with what was going on with the Justice League Beyond, which was written by Christos Gage of Avengers Academy and Stormwatch fame. And again, you can tell Higgins is playing it safe as he's mainly focusing on how this is all affecting Terry, while the world building and exposition is strictly Gage. Neither of them are doing a bad job, both sides are fine, but you can just tell that they really struggled to keep the tone consistent as the League are dealing with this big adventure where they fight their dark counterparts with insane over-the-top action, while Terry's story is more personal and grounded, which is weird to say since his story still involves interdimensional travel, traversing a cyberpunk dystopia, and being chased by a gang of killer clowns. Actually, come to think about it, why are the Jokers a thing in this universe? I mean, the Lord's World Joker wasn't even dead. He was lobotomized by Lord Superman and ended up living a regular life as a faculty member of Arkham. The Jokers are meant to represent rebellion and anarchy. Wouldn't having a gang based on Lord Batman make more sense since he's against Lord Superman? I mean, I like the Joker, and the Jokers are cool, but just saying, would have been neat to see a Sons of Batman version of this gang and its members. Plus, a fun callback. Now let's get into characters, starting with Batman Beyond. Terry is pretty much meant to be the POV character for the reader. Unlike Bruce, his adventures have only just started going beyond, no pun intended, Gotham. Now, in the original animated series, the only world-ending threat he faced was Starro in the Justice League 2-parter. Terry is asked to do a big task and face off against a powerful enemy who has an entire city gunning for him, with his only ally being a more corrupt version of himself and later a double agent who they themselves are not in the best situation, though I won't spoil who that is since it would reveal a lot. Even when he gets Lord Batman's Beyond suit, it's not exactly easy as unlike his own suit, he has never tested it. He never trained in it, while also seeing a world and version of himself so broken. Hell, talking about Terry from this world, we see a very broken kid. He never learned discipline and just continues his cycle of getting into trouble and thinking only of himself, even stealing from his own mother, though at the same time showing glimpses of our Terry, as he doesn't take pleasure in doing this and even shows shame when he confronts his mother. When he meets Batman, he does seem to see him as a chance to be better, but also still wanting to focus on saving his own ass, and clearly is keeping some secrets from his heroic counterpart, which will leave Terry and the reader guessing on what he'll do. Next up, we got the Just Lords. I'm putting them together as well. Individually, they don't really have much going on. Like, Curare in this universe is a Green Lantern, and though Kai is shocked at first to see his assassin sister wielding a lantern ring, they really don't do anything with it after. Micron here is spliced with lizard DNA to apparently become stronger, but it's never elaborated. White Adam, who seems to just be a relative of Black Adam, and Flash seems to just be crazy and more like Reverse Flash, while Warhawk and Aquagirl are, well, they're just there. And how are those three even here? Given what was told about this universe, I'm not sure how these versions are even here or on the team. I cannot remember what the hell those two even did. Even Lord Superman, who in the original episodes was actually pretty interesting, as you get this sense he wants to be loved and be seen as a hero, but at the same time refuses to admit his way was wrong. Here, honestly, it felt like a somehow even weaker version of Injustice Superman, down to having a borderline psychotic Wonder Woman as a lover. The most developed characters on this team, and it's not by much, was probably Lady Barda and Lord Orion, as seeing Mr. Miracle leaves her conflicted as she misses her world Scott, who died. They're the only ones who kind of reminded me that, oh yeah, they are meant to be just morally corrupted, not straight up evil, which leads me to ask why they didn't just make them the Crime Syndicate. Man, once again, a DCAU project that makes me ask that question. They're not bad villains, but definitely not as interesting as they should have been. League is also no better. Hell, most of the critiques of the Lords I can also say for most of the League, with the exception of Superman, Wonder Woman, and Superboy. Hell, just like the Lords, Barda and Scott are the most interesting of the group outside the three, 3, since they were still dealing with their own hangups before the story started. Superman doesn't get too much development to warrant his own segment, but you can get this sense he wants to be happy Diana is back. He got his friend back, but at the same time knows her being there is a bad omen and is forced to not trust her. Once the truth is out, is willing to help her regardless of how she views herself. Superboy is sort of forced to go through a trial by fire, as like Batman, he too is a wild card to the Lords, as they've never faced a being like Zod before, and though he wants to be like Superman, it ain't easy to resist his more brutal tendencies given how he was raised. But once he learns his link to Earth 50, well, let's just say he becomes worried he is like Superman, just not the one he was hoping for. Finally, we have Wonder Woman. Diana is conflicted with herself. She wants to be like how she was back in the old days, but she's been forced to do things to fight off and then later make a temporary peace with the Lords. She's not sure if she's a good person, that she can call herself a hero. Sure, Bruce and Clark believe she can and tell her, but she still needs to convince herself, and seems the only way she'll know is to finally face her demons, which in this case is Lord Superman and his team. That was done by Thonny Silas for the Batman side, while Dexter Soy on the Justice League side. Silas's art is pretty perfect for the DCAU. His art style is pretty much a more detailed version of Bruce Timm's art with slightly more details and sharper angles, with some moments almost being nearly identical to Timm's, like when we see Lord Batman's memorial statue. Soy's, on the other hand, is more detailed, less focused on trying to resemble the DCAU style, and more just emphasizing the emotions by giving the characters more expressive facial reactions, which is fine, though I do think he made Superman a bit too thin. Oh, and one complaint I can give regarding the art, and it's not really the fault of either artist, but my god, they need to redesign Superman Beyond's suit. It's not bad design, but the choice of making it black and white is just him looking more like Lord Superman, minus the cape and the red on his shield. Make it hard to follow who has the upper hand over who when the two are fighting. Just saying, I don't think anyone would complain if he had a new suit that was more, well, Superman. Maybe something like the Kingdom Come suit, or maybe even keep the design but make it red and blue. Anyway, besides that was pretty solid. On a whole, Batman Beyond 2.0 Justice Lords Beyond is fine, but far from being the best thing out of this series. That honor goes to what happened right after, but that's a story for another time. This was a cool concept with the return of the Justice Lords, and the stuff with Diana and both Terrys were pretty interesting, along with the history of Earth 50 after the animated series, but for the most part, the execution was off, and it just resulted in the comic equivalent to a fun popcorn flick, where it had some solid moments, but for the most part, most people will probably just come for the great art and action. Though, only recommend reading after watching the Better Worlds two-parter and the Justice League Beyond comic, which ain't too bad as they were still pretty fun. Not the greatest comic to start off 2026 to review, but definitely not the worst. Thanks for watching. Like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell for updates, and follow me on Blue Sky. Next time, we're gonna follow the themes of Masked Vigilantes, though with pulp instead of cyberpunk, as we return to Dynamite Comics' The Spider series, where the masked crime fighter, not a zombie queen, but a businessman from hell. Later.